So today I'm going to give a sequence to chapter 8 of the Miriam's book that deals with the laboratory of the invisible world. And just to give a quick recap, because we're going to start on question 17, and Kardec covered already some things very, very important that we need to be comfortable with to continue with the Kardec's questionnaires. So in this chapter, Kardec really investigates things regarding to the spiritual world. And he starts by a common curiosity that everybody would have, right? That is related to the clothing and the accoutrements that spirits present when they show themselves to us. They appear to us dressed, and I'm talking about here in a physical phenomena, in apparitions that everyone will see it, but equally in a mediumistic phenomena in which the seeing mediums will see those spirits, and they are dressed with something, most commonly with a drape, a long cloth that covers the whole body. The more evolved the spirits, you have some kind of luminosity around them. Um, and they will be carrying things pertaining to themselves while they were incarnate. If they have a watch, we have the case of this snuff box they have to go through again over here. So they will present themselves dressed the way they used to dress, the way they are comfortable to dress, the kind of dressing that is the type of dressings that was used at the time of the incarnation. Someone for the 1800s would present dressed like someone of the 1800s and so forth and so on. And Kardec comes with the curiosity that becomes in a scientific investigation and a science of observation, of course. So where does the cloth come from? Where does the apparatus, the little things then that they may wear, a necklace, where do they come from? And Kardec proposed some hypotheses himself, and reasoning on those hypotheses, he pretty much canceled those hypotheses as not really possible or good hypothesis. Right, one of those hypotheses was that the clothes that the spirits were an integral part of the spirit, meaning that in the spiritual world, here we have a body that we cover with clothes. In the spiritual world, the spirit will have the body and the clothes being integral parts. Like you don't change your clothes. That's what you are with that clothes, right? And Kardec was very quick to say, no, that's not a good hypothesis. One of the issues was, what about the apparatus? And he always used the case of the snuff box that we studied before of the spirit, the incarnated man who went to visit a lady who was sick in the lady's bedroom at an inappropriate time of the night, dressed in his normal ways, carrying a snuff box. The only thing is that that visit was made while that man's physical body was sleeping in his own bed, and he went in and out of a body experience with all his normal clothes and carrying a snuff box that was identical to the one that he used to carry everywhere that he went to. So if the clothes was an integral part of the spirit, what about the apparatus, the occurrences, the snuff box in this example. That could not be an integral part of the spirit, right? So he noted that hypothesis. Another hypothesis was that for each object that we have here in the physical realm, there is an ethereal correspondent in the spiritual world, meaning the snuff box that the man had here in the physical world, that is an identical but ethereal snuff box in the spiritual world that is there for him to use in the spiritual world. Okay? That's an okay hypothesis, but he didn't like that very much. And continue his search. He asked the assistance of St. Louis, and St. Louis is one who provides most of the answers of Kardec's questions over here. And as I said last week, what we going to read, what we receive here are the revelations from the spiritual world. Okay, there is no way for us to do, let's say, a research study right now. It's all being revealed to us through mediumship, and he 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 used St. Louis to provide most of the answers of the questions regarding this matter. Another hypothesis that he placed directly to St. Louis was if all objects in the physical world have a double theoretical the same way in the spirit in the spiritual plane, which is a little bit different from the second hypothesis, means that the spiritual world would mimic the physical world, not the other way around. It's as if the spiritual world is the one that imitates what happened in the physical, which would make the physical more important, would make the physical the original one, and the spiritual world would be a copy, basically, right? We know very well that that's the other way around, right? If anything, it is the other way around. That the physical world is a bad copy, so to say, of the spiritual realm. And one of the things I used in his research was the issue of pneumatography or direct writing, right? In which you open a drawer that is completely empty, absolutely nothing inside the drawer. You put an empty plain piece of white paper in there, leave it there for some time, open up, and there is a message written in ink in that piece of paper. Where did the pencil came from, the ink, how they use the ink. We're going to see later on that most cases of apportations, when spirits deliver something of the spiritual world to us, those things has a short half-life. They disintegrate eventually, but the writing stays. And Kardec's going to ask St. Louis, what is the difference? Why the ink stays in the paper, while if they bring, let's say, a flower from the spiritual world, with some time, it would disintegrate, that have a limited half-life, right? These are all things that Kardec covered up to question 17. And one of the questions that I find very important is how does spirit manufactures? Because the answer is that from St. Louis that the spirit do manufacture the clothing, that they manufacture the apparatus that they come with, that they create for themselves the clothing, the snuff box, everything that they present to us. They use universe cosmic fluid, UCF, to manufacture the things that they have. When you read Nosulai and the descriptions of André Luiz of Nosulai, is a city to everything that you can imagine, right? The spirits who need to rest, they have a bed. The spirits who need to transport themselves from point A to point B, with not being able to volitate, that is kind of a buses, and they have everything. How is that all that created? Well, is that also created using the mind, the will of the spirits, and manipulation of the universe cosmic fluid. And that's the answer from St. Louis. Not all the spirits understand the process, the methodology to which they are able to make things. They make almost kind of instinctively, the same way that right now all of us use this computer, use our iPhone, our cell phone, but most of us have no idea how this thing works. We use it. We do things that marvels us over here, but I have no idea if we ask how this thing work, how we are able to come to this result using this machine. Even a simple calculator, you don't know how it can calculate the trigonometry, the very complex equations the good calculators can do. We don't know how they are able to do it, but they do it and we use it. And the spirits will be able to clothe themselves on the way that is comfortable to them. But if we ask them, what is the process of this creation? Most of them will not know, right? Another question for Radek that's very important is if spirits manipulating the UCF can create all kinds of things. Could they create something that is, say, poisonous to harm someone? And the answer from St. Louis, perhaps they could, but they would not be allowed to. Follow that question, Kardec asked, what about if the spirits use the manipulation of the UCF, the cosmic fluid, to create healing substance to assist people? Can they do that? And the answer, yes, they can, and they do that quite frequently. So we can conclude that there is a limitation to how much we can do in the spiritual world. There are rules and regulations that governs this process of creation. If it's for evil, you're not going to be allowed to do it. If it's to assist brothers and sisters, you have the green light to go ahead and do it, right? Um, of course, you would conclude that more about the spirits, they can do more. They know more. They have greater know-how, one thing, and they have the moral authority to do things that less above the spirit does not have still that green light to do everything that they want. More above the spirit, you quite very often use the assistance of less evolved spirit. Keep in mind that less evolved does not mean evil by any means, right? Just means less evolved. To assist the production of many things when those things are dealing with more dense matter, because the more evolved the spirit have a petty spirit that is so dematerialized that it's hard for them to associate with more dense gross matter. So there you have the assistance of less evolved spirit that still can associate with more dense matter, perhaps things that are being brought to us that our physical eyes can see. You can imagine those things are quite dense in terms of matter, and usually are led above the spirit that produces those things under the guidance of more evolved spirit. I think those topics are very important because they're going to give a pretty good summary at the end of this chapter. And when you get to that summary, I'd like everyone to please ask anything that it's not understood. So we stopped on the topic of the modification of properties of matter. Still, St. Louis providing the answers, and we stop on 16 today. We start with the question 17.
Okay. Number 17. If a spirit can draw from the universal element the matter for such objects and give them a temporary reality with their own particular properties, can it also draw the matter needed to write with, which would give us the key to the phenomenon of direct writing? In fact, this is exactly where we wanted to arrive at with all the previous questions, which proved that this spirit had read our thoughts.
Missed the top line. So right, finally, you have arrived at the correct point. You don't see that?
No, don't see that one.
Sorry.
Okay, you take that one and then I'll continue again.
Yeah. Finally, you have arrived at the correct point.
In fact, this is exactly where we wanted to arrive at with all the previous questions, which proves that this spirit had read our thoughts.
Okay. So again, as I said, Kardec paid a lot of attention to this phenomenon of pneumatography or direct writing. And again, it's very simple. It's a piece of paper inside of an empty drawer that you lock the drawer, leave there for some time, and when it comes out, there is a message written in there, or there is a drawer or in there, but there's something written in that piece of paper. And the question, Kardec, is, do they have ink in the spiritual world? Do they have pencil in the spiritual world? And the answer is yes, they use the same process for manipulation of the clothing, of anything else, which is the manipulation of what Kardec calls the universal element, the cosmic fluid or universal fluid. By the manipulation of that elementary substance, matter, the primordial matter that forms everything in the physical and the spiritual world, they would create the pencils, the ink, and leave notes on a piece of paper for us. And the same for the snuff box, let's say, of that man who presented himself with identical snuff box that he had in the physical world. And Kardec makes a note that he went around and around and around with his questionings, and that's where he wants to get. And St. Louis knew of that from the beginning, but allowed Kardec to go to his questionings because, again, he is a teacher, and this is a education for us. So Kardec is using his teaching methodology with this questionnaire to come what he wants to get. But before to get here, he wants to bring some more lessons, some more information to us. 18, if no questions.
18. If the matter used by a spirit has no permanence, why don't letters produced by direct writing disappear? Don't draw conclusions from words. To start with, I did not use the word never, because I was referring to a voluminous material object. In the case of direct writings, however, these are signs that are useful to preserve, and so they are. What I meant to say was that the objects thus composed by a spirit cannot be made useful, since in reality they cannot possess the same aggregation of matter as your solid objects.
Okay, so we mentioned before that the more dense objects, if they bring this knife box, if they bring a flower, if they bring a table or anything from the spiritual world that was created in the spiritual world and presented to us, those objects have a short half-life. Eventually, they disintegrate. But the writing does not. You can see here the tridimensional things, like a flower, a table, anything else. There is a very great amount of matter in it, right? There's a lot more matter, let's say, in a piece in a writing, the ink over there that is basically bidimensional, right? And it is useful. Books, messages, notes is something that can stay to eternity and is useful to us. Is a teaching element for us to use. But things about from the spiritual world, they are not really useful to us because they will disaggregate eventually. So it seems like they are able to give a property to ink that allows it to stay perpetually on a piece of paper. While the other things, since they are not that useful to us, besides demonstrating the capability, besides having a teaching value to us, to show to us that things can be manufactured in the spiritual world, they can be reproduced in the spiritual world. But once you see it, once you observe it, it's done, that teaching. They don't need to stay over there. Let's say if they bring a piano, not going to be able to play that piano, or at least not going to be able to play that piano for a long time. We're going to have to do our own pianos over here. We can make our own pianos over here. But lessons that come from the spiritual world, from the spirits, we cannot reproduce them over here. Therefore, they stay perpetually as a teaching instrument to us. Okay?
Okay.
It's the same thing with the precipitated painting, right? Which is the paintings that are made by the spirits, and that they also stay, right? We still have those in Lilydale nowadays. The direct painting, so to say.
Yes.
So, John, I have a question. Did you say they stay?
They stay, yes.
But direct writing, not necessarily, correct?
No, they do also direct writing. That's what I was saying. Direct writing stays, and the things that are relevant, that they are useful, as they say here, they stay. Things that are just for show, they don't stay.
So, okay, so if there was a manifestation and the spirits did something for a meeting, for instance, that disappears, like flowers or something like that, right?
Yeah,
yes.
they disappear. Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next.
Liz?
Okay. Oh, it says 129. Okay. The above explanation may be summarized as follows. The spirit acts upon matter. It draws from the universal cosmic matter as it pleases. The elements required to form objects with the appearance of various objects of the earth. It can also act to its will upon the elementary matter to cause an inner transformation that gives it certain properties. This faculty is inherited to the nature of the spirit, who often employs it instinctively when necessary, and therefore without realizing it. The objects of thus formed by the spirit are temporary, depending on its will or need. It can make them or unmake them as its own pleasure. The objects can, in certain cases, appear perfectly real to living persons, becoming momentarily visible and even tangible. This procedure must be regarded as one of formation and not creation, since the spirit cannot produce something out of nothing.
Okay.
Mhm.
So this is pretty much a summary already of everything that has been covered. And Kardec tells here that St. Louis brings to us a few revelations over here. I count over here 6 revelations. Maybe you guys can count more. Okay, and of the laboratory of the spiritual world. And one, the most important, the primordial, I have to start with that, right? The spirits draw from the universe cosmic matter. Oh, it pleases the elements required from objects with the appearance of various objects on Earth. So everything derives from the universal cosmic fluid. Spirits will utilize this abundant ingredient that it's like air around us over here. The cosmic fluid in the spiritual world will be like air around here. And here, of course, the same, right? The air exactly is made of cosmic fluid by itself. And they are able to manipulate that elementary matter to create everything as it pleases. This is very important, right? Another revelation. It can act through its will upon the elementary matter by the desire, by the thought. They can act on this matter and cause transformation to the UCF, to the cosmic fluid. A third revelation thinks this is very important. This faculty is inherent to the nature of the spirit, who often employs it instinctively when necessary and therefore without realizing it. As I told you, the spirit will find themselves dressed with the clothes that they are used to wear while incarnate. They will draw from the elementary matter, UCF, using their will, they will clothe themselves. But if you ask, how do you do that? I don't know. I'm not sure. I just know that I do it. So the Kardec would use the word instinctively, as if almost not in the nature of the spirit to be able to manipulate cosmic fluid to dress oneself, to have the things that they used to have in the spiritual world. Okay, and these are things very important. Instinctively, the necessary, and therefore without realizing it. The same way that we are using the cell phone today, but most of us doesn't know how does the methodology behind this thing. Another revelation here. The objects thus formed by the spirit are temporary, depends on its will or need, as we just covered. Especially tri-dimensional things, they have a short life. They are able to aggregate that matter in the spiritual world, presented to us, solid, but eventually will disaggregate and disappear. Okay, but again, the writing and the painting stays. Another revelation. The object can, in certain cases, appear perfectly real to the living persons, become momentarily visible and even tangible. So the things produced in the spiritual world can become completely visible by our physical eyes. Okay, everyone will see it. You can touch, can feel it, you can even smell. Many relates of flowers, showers of petals come from nowhere in some case of physical phenomena that is smelled exactly like that flower of those petals, but eventually they will disappear. another revelation. This procedure must be regarded as one of formation and not creation. I think this is extremely important. Someone says that human beings do not invent anything, discover everything. That, let's say, Edison did not invent the light bulb. He discovered how to manipulate things to get to the lamp, right? Arguably, anyone can, perhaps just words, but what Kardec says is exactly that the spirit does not create anything on their own out of nothing. They utilize things that are available to them to put it together as putting together a puzzle and in the formation of things. So it's not creation, but formation of things. And a seventh one that it's input over here when they say that we can create things for good, that we have this instinctively ability of create things even though we don't know exactly how we do that, but we cannot, let's say, create poison. You know, St. Louis said that it could not. So the lesson 7 here is that there is rules and regulations of what you can do. If it's for evil, there is a stop sign along the line. If it's for good, you have the green light to go ahead and perform it. So it is all revelations provided to us by St. Louis. I counted 7 over here. Perhaps somebody can count even more than that in this one short paragraph. That is a good summary of everything that St. Louis revealed to us here. Questions, comment before we move on? Okay, 130.
Okay. Can't see the top, John.
The existence of a unique elementary matter is today almost universally accepted by science and confirmed by the spirits.
As we have just seen, this matter gives origin to all the bodies of nature, and by the transformations it undergoes, it also produces their various properties. That is how a helpful substance can be made noxious by a simple modification. Chemistry itself has provided numerous such examples. Everyone knows that two harmless substances can be combined in certain portions to result in something harmful. 1 part oxygen and 2 parts hydrogen, both harmless by themselves, form water, but by adding only 1 more atom of oxygen, we have a corrosive liquid. Even without altering the proportions, it is often that a simple modification in the form of the molecule aggregation is enough to change the properties, which is how an opaque object can become transparent and vice versa. Since the spirit can act so decisively upon the elementary matter by merely exerting its will, we can understand that not only can it form various substances, but it can even denature their properties by using its own will as a reactive agent.
Okay, thanks. There's very little to say over here. The manipulation of simple elements to form more complex substances is very well known by all of us in our sciences. And if you get the elements in the periodic table, which are already complex elements formed by cosmic fluid, but we cannot go any smaller than that right now in our science, so we use that as an example. If you take two atoms of of hydrogen and associate, and they have affinity also to one of oxygen, you have a molecule of water. You got a bunch of molecules of H2O and you have water. If for each one of those molecules you add another atom of oxygen, now you have hydrogen peroxide. If you drink water, it's good for you. If you drink hydrogen peroxide, you're going to be in some serious problem, right? It's poisonous to us. Just by the aggregation of one more atom of oxygen, we completely change the whole thing. Sometimes you don't even have to add anything else, right? Kardec used the example of transform opaque into something translucent and transparent, and vice versa. Just by the arrangements of carbon, only carbon, nothing else, you have graphite that is dark, opaque, soft, can almost destroy in your hands. Depends how you rearrange the crystals of pure carbon, you have diamond that is translucent and the hardest thing that risks everything is the hardest things that we have. And it's just carbon, both of them. Just by rearrange the position, so to say, of the crystals, you can manipulate them. So Kardec's using this to show us that simple manipulations of one little thing can do a lot of things with. And the cosmic fluid is the elementary matter that creates everything else in both in the physical and in the spiritual world. Okay? And the same way that we can aggregate things, the spirits can aggregate things, they can disaggregate things. The same way that they can put the pieces together, let's say in a puzzle, they can break apart those things and disaggregate those things and make them disappear or make them available to be transported from one point to another and then be aggregated again at another point and make it visible to us. Any questions here? Because I think it's very important to move on, and especially when I deal now with curative magnetic actions, which is basically manipulation of UCF again. Do not, let's move on. 131.
Okay, curative magnetic action, 131. This theory provides us with the solution to a problem in magnetism that has been well known but inexplicable until now, the phenomenon of the modification of the properties of water by willpower. The acting agent is the magnetizer spirit, who in most cases is assisted
by a discarnate spirit. It causes a transmutation by means of the magnetic fluid,
which, as we have already stated, is the substance most nearly like cosmic matter or the universal element. And if it can thereby cause a modification in the properties of water, it can just as easily cause a modification in the organic fluids, which will result in the healing effect of the magnetic action when properly directed. We know the crucial role played by the will in all magnetic phenomena, but how may we explain the material action of such a subtle agent? The will per se is not an entity, a substance, or even a property of highly etherealized matter. Rather, it is the essential attribute of the spirit, that is, of the thinking being. With the aid of this lever, the spirit acts upon the elementary matter, and by a consequent action, it reacts upon its components, whose inner properties can thus be transformed. The will is an attribute of both the incarnate and the errant spirit, and hence the power of the magnetizer, which we know results from the force of his or her will. The incarnate spirit can act upon the elementary matter and that thereby modify the properties of things within certain limits. This explains the ability to heal by contact and the laying on of hands, a faculty which some individuals possess to a high or low degree.
Thanks.
Okay.
So we know that Kardec was contemporaneous with Mesmer. We know that he worked with Mesmer, studying magnetism, mesmerism. We heard from other people that Kardec himself had worked with magnetism. I don't think directly from him as much as I know, right, Ron? I don't think he said himself that he
No, I never heard
practiced it.
anything him saying he was, but he worked with it.
Yeah, that he worked with. But from other people relate that, not him himself, right?
Yeah,
As much as I know.
as far as I know, yeah.
So it's obvious that you the question. Okay, so you are telling now that the spirits are able to manipulate this elementary matter, cosmic fluid, to create things, to modify things. Is that the answer for the question how mesmerism works? How are magnetized able to heal individuals? And there's many documents that people had been healed by this called magnetism. And that brings to us the conclusion that that is the answer. Okay? We imagine that our physical body is about 7% water, and that's 60 to 70% water. So if we can manipulate this elementary matter in the water, if you can manipulate this elementary matter in the water that is in our physical body, and if we are 70% water, we can do a tremendous amount of transformation of our physical body. If you can transform water, and if you transform water in our physical body, and our physical body is 70% water, we can by that transform the physical body itself in a process of producing cure. Then comes the question, well, but transformation does not necessarily mean curing, being good. Perhaps could make it worse. Perhaps could be a cause of causing cancer to others, right? And that comes the importance of the magnetizer thought, the desire of the magnetizer. For one thing, we just learned here now that we pretty much have the free will, the green light to do good, but there is a stop sign when we seek to do evil, right? So that is one point that the magnetizer working with this, you have the green light when it's to bring a cure to human bodies, not to damage human bodies, right? And if you think, let's think in terms of a recipe, cooking recipe, what do we have in a recipe? Basically, three elements of a recipe, right? You have the ingredients, you have the method, how you combine those ingredients, and you require some kind of energy, right? Most of the time, this energy is heat. In cook, most of the time is heat. Not always, but most of the time is heat. And now you convert that to the magnetism, to the curative magnetic action. You think, what is the ingredient? Cosmic fluid. The elementary matter. Cosmic fluid is the ingredient. That's one ingredient. All that you need is one ingredient, right? Methodology, the goodwill, the desire to promote health to someone, to promote cure to someone. What is the energy? It's heat for cooking, right? If you gonna denature an egg, you can boil it, you can fry it, but whatever you do, it's heat. You know, you look at egg white in a raw state, and you look at egg white on a boil after you boil, so that it completely changed the nature of that egg white. It's still egg white, but now it's not that transparent, flimsy kind of thing. Went raw and now becomes something solid, compact white matter by using heat. In case of producing cure, the energy is the thought. Thought is energy. So you go back to the energy necessary for the recipe is the thought. The methodology is the goodwill. And the ingredient is the cosmic fluid. All right, Ebony?
Thank you, Elmo. Do we as incarnates have the ability to magnetize water in the same way as discarnates do?
Yes. In mesmerism, in magnetism, the work is done by incarnate spirit. The desire, the will of the incarnate mesmerizer, so to say, right? There is many spiritualist things that produce cures, memorism, and everything. They do not consider the spiritual realm at all. It's all using their own energies. I particularly, and most spiritualists see that even in mesmerism, there is a spiritual component, even if they don't consider being the case. Like Reiki, the treatment that works for headaches, being proved that works well for headaches, for the things over there. The practitioners of Reiki does not consider the spiritual component. They use the energies of themselves that assist others, and it works very well. I personally, and a good number of spiritism, believe that there is a spiritual component in all those processes. But when you're dealing with mesmerism, we are dealing with properties of the incarnated spirit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so if those individuals that practice, let's say, Reiki or some of those methods of what they call is not parallel medicine, but complementary medicine.
Alternative medicine.
Alternative medicine, yes. They're not really putting in consideration the spiritual factor there. Now, I personally believe that there is a spiritual factor in everything because I've always been influenced, always been surrounded by spirits. So personally, I think that there is a spiritual percentage in just everything that happens, especially when someone is in that goodwill with the desire of assist others. There will be good spirits over there to assist, to provide their energies for things to work well. Keeping in mind that many times those things does not work, the individuals do not get the cure they were looking for in those treatments, and then it's multifactorial, right? And maybe that individual needs to go to that trial, needs to go that, and maybe be good for him, for that individual as an eternal spirit, even if it's painful for that physical body at that moment. Maybe that spirit doesn't need that very much, but it's the spouse, the son, the daughter that needs to go to that trial. And that spirit is able to provide the opportunity for that spouse, for those siblings, for those sons and daughters to go to that trial. So it's very multifactorial and see, oh, it doesn't work for everyone. No. It works for those who can benefit, for the ones that the things will be good for those. And we don't have access to know all that.
There was
That would be, that
the
would be
famous
one.
case. There was a famous case of Chico Xavier, right, when he was offered by Zé Arigó, a healer of physical, a healer in Brazil, medium healer, very famous in the 60s. That he asked Chico Xavier if he wanted to treat his eye, right? Because Chico always had problems with his eyes. He was almost blind on one eye and had very difficulty seeing with the other. And Chico answered him, "No, I have to go through this. Is an experience that I have to go through, and it's part of the process of my evolutionary path. So I'm not going to treat it spiritually."
I have a question. So for spirits that do accept, or if they go for a treatment and they are granted their wishes of, like a physical cure or something like that, are they postponing some of the trials they have to go through? Or I mean, I know that they have to receive like the blessing per se, they have to be worthy. But it's like Chico knew, right? Because Chico has this vision. But let's say if I go to be treated and I have a disease that I'm supposed to go through and I get the blessing or I get the cure, what does that really mean to me? It's just that I was honored because of my behavior, like I advanced, or am I necessarily just postponing my atonement or my expiation?
Okay. We should try to better our lives as much as possible. We should try to improve our quality of life as much as possible as incarnate here, right? If you do have an opportunity of cure yourself of some disease or some anything else through our current medicine or through spiritual assistance, get it done. Get it done. When Jesus had the encounter with the woman who was ready to be stoned, he said, "Go and sin no more." So maybe you'll be full of debts with the divine laws. Divine laws provides the opportunity of receiving cure of difficulty. Take it, say thank you, and sin no more. and you're good. I was listening to Dr. Fructoso. They asked him the other day, a question is pretty much like that. He'll say, "Well, you were a spiritist, right?" I said, "Yes." "And you were a surgeon that cure individuals from cancer, right?" "Yes." "And you believe that individuals who get those cancers, those kind of sufferings, is because they're going to some atonement, is going to some difficulties, right?" "Yes." "So are you interfering, let's say, with the spiritual world now by bringing a cure of individuals who need to go to those trials?" It's pretty much what you're asking now, right? And his answer was very interesting, and I liked it very much. He is a doctor of medicine. He is study, prepare yourself to alleviate suffering, to cure people when possible. And that's what he does. He has seen in his experience, he does gastrointestinal oncology surgery. Individuals that will be able to remove the cancer completely. And as much as our means of identifying things today is in our science through images, CAT scans, sonograms, MRIs, and all the laboratory studies that our science is able to do these days, the individual is cured. There is no more disease. They even go and give like a course of chemotherapy just in case there was some um, cells left behind. Of course, it's microscopic, cannot see in any kind of image, and it's so tiny that it cannot be tested positive in any way. So those individuals considered to be cured. And then a couple of years later, they do a follow-up, and that cancer is back. So he believes that he does what he needs to do as a medical doctor. Individuals needs to go to that trial, they will continue to have the trial. And if they no longer need to go to that trial, it doesn't come back. So he doesn't believe that as a medical doctor, he has the ability to intervene or to change what's necessary for that spirit. He does what he is trying to do, what he needs to do to alleviate pain and sorrow as much as we can. And that's what should be doing here. And as much as we as a patient should be seeking to do as well. If you are able to be cured and see no more, perhaps we stay free of it. If we're able to eliminate the cause, the genesis that is spiritual in nature of that cancer or those things, they're not going to come back anymore because now we are cured as a spiritual being. But if you continue sick as a spiritual being, that sickness will show itself perhaps in the physical body with a recurrence or something else. So we go ahead and we do what we can do to better ourselves and seek to heal ourselves spiritually speaking, so we don't have to go to any more atonement, because the law is not punitive. It's corrective. You correct yourself, you educate yourself, you're done. You don't need to go to that anymore.
And I think a lot of it happens in that process of cure, right? Or the process of healing that you probably will go through. I mean, we all know, like, you become more conscious about life, about your actions, and that process itself is the process of cure, right? Because it's curing your mind, curing the spirit, and I guess that the body is just a consequence of that transformation.
And that is the objective. Even if you lose the physical body, maybe it's a disease that our science cannot cure, but in that process of atonement, you cured the spirit. So the body will die and will bring with it all that sickness that was before in the spirit, but now is cured by that process of the atonement. That's the difficulty dealing with that disease. Okay, that is the opportunity given to us if we use good use of it, right? I say my American mom over here say the best thing that happened to her was a cancer that completely transformed the way she used to think, completely purified her heart. I'm sure that she left it here completely free of the disease of the spirit that was the cause of that cancer. But in my experience, I've seen a lot of people go through difficult trials, and in my impression, they complicated their lives even more with rebelliousness. Why me? It's not fair, and a state of rebelliousness that is accumulative. Adds more problems than anything else. So the opportunity given to us is exactly what you said, is to use this experience to cure the spirit. But if you misuse that opportunity using our free will, we can complicate things as well.
A lot of the spirits they'll come back, we see very often in psychographic letters or something that at the time they won't know, but they will report back that the cancer was the best thing that happened to them, right? To shorten their next trial or to really expiate something they left. Obviously, when in it, you won't see it, but once you're, disincarnate and able to analyze and see how much you gain from it, I think we will understand, and we hear very often, right?
That's right. And again, I mean, that's the objective, right? God does not allow you to go through these difficulties for just for suffering as a punitive, as a it's always a corrective, it's always educational. Make use, make the corrections, learn the lessons, and you're not gonna go through those things anymore because you learned and you're done with that. And that's a thing to be grateful for. If you take our incarnation as one day at school, all of us have a bad day at school, right? You learn, come back, and you do better the next day.
Yep, thank you.
Is any questions that? Because now we're gonna change topic. Gonna change that chapter. Not really my favorite, but I think it's important to cover. Not, let's go chapter 9, haunted places.
Okay. Haunted places, 132. The spontaneous manifestations which have occurred down through time and the persistence of certain spirits in making their presence obstinately felt in certain places have given origin to the belief in haunted places. The following responses were given to questions about them. Do spirits attach themselves to individuals only or to things also? It depends on how evolved they are. Certain spirits may attach themselves to earthly objects. For example, misers who have hidden their money and who are not sufficiently dematerialized may continue to watch over it and guard it. 2. Do errant spirits show a predilection for certain places? It is the same principle. Spirits who are not attached to earth prefer places where they can practice loving deeds. These spirits are more attracted to people than to material objects. Nevertheless, they are those
who might prefer certain places for a while, but they are always less evolved spirits. Okay, let's see here. So haunted places.
Okay.
Here Kardec is dealing with the so-called spontaneous manifestations, and their importance. The spontaneous is important, meaning that they are not invited, and there is no evocation. They are not called to some place for one or another place. It happens spontaneously. The spirit show themselves, makes themselves present on their own, spontaneously, not invited, not evoked. Okay. And those apparitions or any actions of those spirits have created the stories of haunted places. And there are facts, they're real, and there are no things created by our imagination, right? So Kardec wants questioning here, what differentiates between the two of them? What's real and what's not real, right? And we have many documented places or cases of places that being labeled as haunted places because of spiritual phenomena that has happened there, or phenomena that individuals attributed to be spiritual, perhaps they were not spiritual, but becomes part of folklore, the folk tales, and those places become labeled as haunted places. Now, Kardec asks if spirits can attach themselves not only to individuals, but to places as well, to things as well. And the answer basically is yes, right? But of course, it depends on how evolved the spirit is. The more evolved the spirit, the more the spirit more spiritualized will not be attached to anything that is dense, materialized. It will be searching to progress above of what he's coming from, instead of staying where at our minimum staying where it is at a level of gross materialized places. Would they show a predilection for to certain places? Some may do. Spirits who still are unevolved enough to have passions and have those passions put more importance to those passions above reasoning, above sentiments, true sentiments. They will be attached to everything. Those who have the passions, let's say for the money that they have hidden somewhere before they passed away, they still be very attached to that money and don't want anyone to touch that money, and it belongs to them and nobody can have it, and those kind of things. And they may have a passion, being really attracted to objects. And those could be places as well, to a house. This is my house. This is my bedroom. This to anything. It could be money, could be places, could be objectives, houses, anything that stimulates passions if the spirit's not evolved enough to have control of the passions, right? As they say, the passion is like that big, strong horse that if you mount and have control of it, it can take you to where you want to go. If you want and you lose control of it, it will take you anywhere it wants to take you, and you are out of control. So you must have control of those passions, and if you are unevolved enough to give away for those passions, then we attached ourselves to many things, from individuals to places to things. Now we need to remember here that unevolved is still victims of their own passions, so to say. Doesn't necessarily means evil, right? Doesn't necessarily means a troublemaker. Might have an spirit who live in the house that I live today, that likes that house very much, is attached to there, comes by every once in a while, but does not cause any trouble. Understand there is no people living over there, that it's okay, but they are still attached to it. They come by every once in a while, look at it, see it, things, and go living their lives. Not necessarily come there to create problems to myself, my family, try to get us out of there. It's just attached to it. But could some others have this passion so out of control that they believe that nobody could live in that house and create problems for those who are living there? Three?
Okay, 3. You have to. Okay. Since a spirit's attachment to a place is a sign of impurity, does it also mean that it is evil? Of course not. A spirit can be little advanced without being evil. Doesn't the same occur among individuals? Is there any factual basis for the belief that spirits prefer to frequent ruins? No. Spirits go to those places as well as anywhere else, but people's imaginations are impressed by the lugubrious aspect of certain places and attribute to their presence what is only in most cases a very natural effect. How often does fear turn a tree's shadow into a ghost, the growl of an animal or the whistling of the wind into a spirit? Spirits enjoy the human presence, and that is why they prefer inhabited places to abandoned ones. Nonetheless, by what we know about the diversity of temperaments among spirits, there must be misanthropes who may prefer solitude. That is why I did not give you a definite answer to your question. I stated that they can go to abandoned places as well as anywhere else. So it is obvious that those who avoid human contact do so because it suits them. This does not mean, however, that ruins are necessarily preferred by spirits, since it is certain that they are more often found in cities and in palaces than deep in the woods.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so number 3 is just what I call it. The impurity does not necessarily mean evil, okay? Not well evolved enough to have better control of their own passions, of our own passions, doesn't mean that they are evil. It just means that we still have to develop ourselves to minimize our need to comply to our passions, but it not cause harm to anyone or anything. Now, is there any truth that the spirits prefer ruins to get together? And the answer is very simple, no. Right? Actually, the way around. The spirits would prefer the company of incarnate humans. So there are more spirits surround us in the big cities, the small cities, than in the ruins. This is created by creation by our imagination. These are folk tales. I think the appearance of the place itself are suggestive to our imagination that there could be some spiritual phenomena happening in those places, but most of the time it's just our pure imagination. Now, but like amongst us incarnate, there are some misanthropes, right? So individuals who avoid humans, not necessarily dislike, some dislike humans, but some avoids company. They wanted the solitude. They wanted to live in the middle of the wood by themselves. We have among us incarnate. Could that be the same with spirits? And the answer is yes, why not? If I am, as incarnate spirit, rather live alone in the middle of the woods by myself doing my own things, once I discarnate, I will change so drastically? Unlikely. And I will seek in the spiritual world seclusion as well, to be on my own as much as possible. And if places are abandoned, those kind of ruins is what suits them, that's what they will be there. But again, that would be the minority, that would be the exception, not the rule. What I question over here, and again, it's a question of saying that is the case, is if I am misanthrope, if I avoid human contact, would I do everything that I can to preserve the solitude of that environment? And if I perceive the presence of humans, let's say I'm this kind of spirit and I'm using an abandoned house as my place of living alone, and I like to be here on my own, would I do something to keep people away from there? If the answer is yes, then you have this, what they call the haunted house. I will do anything that I can in my power to create phenomena that will scare people away, because I like my solitude, that I wanted to be on my own in that place. That would be the real cases of haunted houses. But again, this is the exception, not the rule. And not necessarily a ruin, could be any other kind of place. Okay, question?
I think the movie, again, it's the movie The Others, right? When I talk about haunted houses, is a good example of how things work, right?
Yeah.
Of course, it's different scenarios there, but I think it's a very good example of those trying to deal with the spirits that are there, the haunting spirits, and vice versa, right? For those that watch it, for those that haven't, do watch it. You need to watch 2 times, because first time you'll be surprised, and then the second time you look from the spiritist view, you have a better understanding.
Yeah, that's a very, very good example indeed. But I think the important thing here is there are spirits everywhere. We are surrounded by spirit. And most spirits will be where they are because they are there. They're not trying to create any problem, not trying to cause fear. I imagine, again, I'll put a question mark over here, a seeing medium not educated about spirituality, you'll see things and we'll immediately come to the conclusion that it's something bad, it's some harmful, something not good because there's spirits around here. No, it's just spirits there, doing what they do in the realm, and these individuals have the ability to see them, but doesn't and with the imagination, with the fears, with the prejudices, with the taboos, with the lack of knowledge, of course, they already conclude that is not good, that is something bad, which absolutely is a wrong way to go about.
Okay,
One more.
number 5.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't see the top, John.
Popular beliefs are usually based on truth. What is the origin of the belief in haunted places?
The basis of truth in this case is indeed the manifestations of spirits, which humans have instinctively believed in throughout time. But as I have said, the notion of lugubrious places strikes the imagination and naturally fills it with beings regarded as supernatural. This superstitious belief is reinforced by the works of poets and children's tales.
Thanks. So what is the truth about haunted places? Well, the truth of the haunted places is the true spiritual manifestation. So it's almost as asking, what's the truth about spiritual manifestation? Well, it is spiritual manifestations. When you educate yourself in this sort of spirituality that spiritual offers to us, we understand, and we will free ourselves from the taboos. We'll free ourselves from the mindset already that spiritual manifestations per se something dangerous, something bad that have to avoid, that have to clear this that place from those spirits. Is all lack of education. Is all a product of our imagination. There has been mediums, individuals with this open window to the spiritual world throughout the times, and individuals have documented what they had seen, and have documented what they have seen through the lens of their eyes. If you are uneducated, if you already carry taboo and prejudices, if you already create that image that anything of seeing spirit is work of the devil and this and that, that's how we're going to describe, right? And that create this taboos, those tales that are product of one, our imagination, and two, of our ignorance of the reality of the spiritual world. If you grow up with the idea, if the person that you admire and respect are telling you that any spiritual manifestations work of the devil, is work of the witches, have those who practice that has to burn on a fire and all those kind of things, and you happen to have this open window to the spiritual world, one will be quiet because you're going to be afraid of be burned on the fire, or you create that image of terror that being reproduced in many literary and artistic ways. But the base of truth is manifestation of spirits.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
Can have one more.
Okay. 6. Do spirits who gather together prefer certain days and hours? No. Days and hours are used by humans to control time during their material life, but spirits do not have that need and do not care about it.
Okay.
Mhm.
The chronological measurement of time, something that we create for our physical life, is very important. What the greatest invention man has ever made is the measurement of time, not time itself, but the measurement of time. Spirit does not need that as much as we do. The hours and days are meaningless to them. I'm going to go ahead over here. What Kardec's going to ask, and the answer from the Spirit is that we have our busy lives, right? You work, normally during the day, into the evening, and we have more free time to allow ourselves to interact with spiritual things or spirituality, usually at night, usually when you lay in our bed and are ready to sleep. We have some time to, one, let our imagination go wild, and two, to really enter in a state of, for mediums, a mediumistic trance, something like that, and see things that perhaps you're not seeing because our mind is busy, busy doing our work, cooking for the kids and this and that, and come one point and I can relax, and usually those things happen at night. So we are more likely to have those feel the presence of spirits, identify spiritual manifestation at those times in which we are more relaxed, that I can open ourselves more to the reality of spiritual manifestation, but also allow our minds to go wild and start imagining things. It could be both our imagination or truth, but both cases usually happen mostly in the evenings at night when we are more relaxed and we are not so busy with our minds, not so busy doing work, doing daily activities. Going to stop here now. We have 5 minutes to finish. Any questions on that matter? Okay. Any?
So next Sunday is the last Sunday of the month. We're going to have our Q&A session. And just as the Tuesdays, both Tuesday studies and Wednesday book club are on a break, and we'll be back in August.
Okay, and it said that the meeting yesterday with a doctor on autism was very good, and you suggest everybody should, those who can,
Yes.
take a listen to it, right?
Yes, if you are interested in the subject autism, the lecture yesterday by Dr. Rafael Rezende on the subject through the United States Spiritist Federation was very good. If you want to, should check it. It's really worth.
And it's on YouTube and SGNY, right?
On YouTube of the United States Spiritist Federation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is Carol there?
Yes, Elmo, I am. Thank you very much, Elmo, and for hosting for us today. Thank you, John. And thank you, Sarita, for reading for us today, and everyone who is here participating. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks for the opportunity to be together again for our studies of the Medium's book, Part 2, Chapter 8 and 9. The topics being the manifestations of the properties of matter and haunted places. Spirits can create the appearance of tangible objects as temporary representations, which can be manipulated or copied. Direct writing can be formed by using the universal cosmic fluid. Spirits use their will to instinctively be manifested upon paper or canvas. Appearances remain permanent if they are useful to preserve. Spirits can create and transmute substances for curing, but would not be allowed to create noxious substances according to the divine law. Less evolved spirits may attach themselves to persons, places, or things. There are places that are documented to be haunted, often found in cities with humans rather than in the quietude of nature. We know that spirits are everywhere, regardless of the day or of the time. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and good spirits for inspiring and guiding us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, the workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace and especially for world peace now, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we go forth now and remind ourselves to be beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.